On this video today, I'm going to show you the steps that I take personally to be able to spray some paint down on a bed like this one for our dually project.
Welcome back for another Tips and Tools Tuesday with your host Anthony Bronner from Hardcore Fab.
So step one is going to be take all the trash out of the bed. You don't want any of that stuff flying around or anything while you're blowing stuff off with an air hose, and definitely not in there while you're trying to spray. Step two is going to be take the bed off the truck. You can't spray up in here if you've got the bed still on the truck, and if you're changing the color like I am, if you've got some color here that's, say, green, like it is on our truck, and you still have this brown in here, anybody walking by is going to be able to see that inside there, and they're going to know you did kind of a half-assed job, and they're going to see the rest of the truck as a half-assed truck. So take the bed off, get it inside, take care of it like you're supposed to. I'm not going to go through all the steps to take the bed off because every one of them is a little bit different. And let's be real, if you can't get the bed off of your truck, then this project's probably going to stop right here for you anyway. So, on to step three. Our next step is going to be to remove any of the trim pieces on it. This particular bed has a cap here on the top, and this would be a great thing to take off just to be able to do a couple different sprains and be able to spray the inside of the bed and then come on the outside and do the outside of the bed and not have to try to do all that in one. All the other stuff on here too, like the side marker lights on this bed since it's a dually, tailgate, and tail lights. You want to pop all that stuff off so that you can get in there and sand everything really good. Make sure that paint wraps around all the edges of stuff and is going to give it a good place to be able to adhere to and not want to peel off later on down the road. So, quick little tidbit. I am using this gasket scraper right here as a tool to get in there and actually pop these clips loose on some of this stuff. Like this top cap here has probably 10 or 12 of these little clips underneath there that you got to get in and push and pry and pop up. You got to be really careful with something like this because you can really get in there and damage the paint and the metal that's underneath there and create a lot more work for yourself in the end. So when it comes time to be able to take some of these things off, like some of this trim here, this double-sided taped on, one of the little secrets that I use is a heat gun. You can actually take the heat gun, heat these parts up a little bit, and as they heat up, they'll transfer that heat onto the tape, and then the double-sided tape becomes really flexible and malleable at that point, and allows you just to pretty well just peel it right off. Here again, patience is key, because I've got my scraper out again, and we don't want to be gouging into all of this stuff, creating dents and marks that we're going to have to take out later. Okay, so where are we at? Step four? Yeah, step four. Any of this kind of glue or double-sided tape or anything like that that's left on the vehicle, you're going to need to get all of that off. So one of the ways that's pretty easy to do and cheap, get you something that you can lubricate it with, because you need to keep it good and wet. I like this foaming glass cleaner because it stays right here and stays put for a minute. It's not instantly just running off onto the floor. And then take a little regular old razor blade and scrape all this off. If you're real careful and you take your time, you can get it off of there without messing up the paint and doing any more damage to the tailgate. Bottom line though is I really don't recommend this. It takes a little bit more time, and there is a good chance that you're going to gouge it and mess it all up. And use a lot of window cleaner. But it is doable if you don't have any other options and don't want to spend any more money. So what I've found that actually works a lot better is this eraser wheel. It's by 3M. I'll put a link down below so you guys can find it if you guys want to go buy one. But they're pretty handy. Has a little arbor on the back of it, so you can just chuck it right into a drill. And then you use the drill as a motor to go ahead and just spin this thing and knock all this off. Quite a bit faster and a lot safer for your paint. So if you was to actually want to take these off of here and not be repainting the truck and just kind of give it a cleaner look and better than stock, real easy to do that. You can actually still see a little bit there. I don't know if you can in the video or not, but you can still see a little bit there left from when I was doing it with the razor blade, because you just can't quite get it all without gouging the crap out of it. But the rest of it is all gone. This wheel also works really great for removing these stickers like this one right here. Alright, and with both sides cleaned up, our next step is to take and clean this all off right here and just wipe it off with paper towel or something. You always end up with some little teeny tiny spots left over. So what I like to do is grab some multi-purpose adhesive remover. I'll put a link to this down below too, so if you guys need some, you know where to grab some. Dab some on this paper towel and just give her a final wipe down. And that'll actually take most of that off pretty quick, especially when there's very little left on there from that wheel. Now at this point, you're ready to sand, and you won't have this glue and stuff getting all in your sandpaper and causing it to gum up and not sand correctly. So that moves us on to step 5. So we're almost to the fun part, but there's one more step left before we get to the sanding, and that is to clean this bad boy. It's been sitting outside. We have no idea what's been all over it. I'm sure there's some tree sap, maybe some grease and grime from throwing stuff in and out of the bed. And you don't want any of that stuff getting mixed into your paint even deeper than it already is by doing some sanding on it. So what we need to do is clean it and get all that stuff off of there before we actually start sanding. Perfect example. Looked pretty clean, but it really wasn't. So a few more paper towels, maybe another 10 minutes, we'll have this thing ready to sand. Well, we're finally here. Number 6. Number 6 is doing a little bit of sanding or prepping or scuffing, whatever you want to call it or however you want to do it. But what we've got to do is we've got to create a mechanical adhesion for this paint to be able to stick to the paint that's already here. A lot of guys will go through and they'll sand something all the way down and prime it and then paint it and all that stuff, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's probably actually the best way to go if you want to be 100% legit about everything. But when you've already got paint like this that is perfectly fine, I mean, it's not peeling in any way, shape, or form. This bed was a new takeoff before it got put on the truck just a few months ago, so it's never really seen any abuse or anything. It's very, very clean as far as all that goes. There's no major scratches or dents or dings or anything in it really to speak of at all. So I'm going to go ahead and just use this paint that's here as our base to get started with. So to be able to do that and spray over the top of it and make this whole deal work, what we need to do is get it roughed up enough on to where it will actually have little ridges sticking up off of the paint that the new paint can then attach itself to. As it sits here right now, this paint's smooth enough where you can't actually have that paint stick after a little bit of time. It's going to get power washed off or just rock blasted off going down the road. But if we can make it rough enough, it will stick and it'll last for quite a little while. What I'm choosing to do is just use a red scuff pad, and I'm going to go over the whole entire thing until all of the gloss is gone. Okay, so by scuffing, what we're trying to achieve, you can see our little flashlight reflection here. That's our original paint. And when it's scuffed, what we're trying to get to is something that looks like this, to where you can barely see the reflection back of that flashlight. See the difference there? This section is scuffed. This section is not. Alright guys, so now we're at step 7. So what that's going to be is we need to clean everything. We need to clean the shop, we need to clean the floor, we need to air blow the ceiling, we need to get into all these little areas in through here, blow all this stuff out as best as we possibly can. You can't obviously get rid of all of it, and I'm in a really crappy scenario, like I said earlier, where I'm spraying in a building that I do lots of other work in. Most of you follow the channel know that I've got a CNC plasma table, and it creates a ton of dust, and it just gets all over everything, all these fine little small metal particles all over everywhere. So this scenario is horrible, but we're going to try to make the best of it with what we got. And a lot of you guys are going to be in the same scenario where you're doing it in a garage that you're building the rest of your project in. So this step is one of the most important steps. So you've got to try to do as much as you possibly can on this to get every piece of dirt out of here that you can. So, like I said, any of this stuff in through here is going to be probably some of the worst areas that you can get some dirt from, because as you're blowing across here, the air from your gun is going to blow in there, and that air is going to blow out any kind of dirt and stuff and put it in the air, and those particles are going to float around and end up all over the rest of these panels. So, very important to get everything clean. Can't stress that enough. So step number 8, well, we need to mask off everything. Now we don't have a lot to mask off with the bed because we took almost everything off of it that was on there that we didn't want painted. But we do have some things that we need to take care of as far as the building goes. We don't want all the overspray from what we're doing here all over the rest of all of our other tools. And we also don't want any dirt and stuff that's left in that part of the building to be blowing over this way as we cycle some air in and out of here by opening the door and stuff like that, trying to get some of this overspray out. So what I've done, I took some regular just painter's plastic tarp type stuff. You get this at your local home store, you know, whatever it is. And I just bought the stuff that was the closest fit for my building. So you can see up there along the top, I just kind of stapled it up there. I've got tiles through this part of the building. Man, those look terrible. Probably need to do something new with all that. Anyways, and I've let it lay over the side of my table here, so now I've got a spot where I can mix some paint and stuff like that and not get that all over everything. And then I've got it all along the other part of the shop here and the other side. So at this point, I've essentially built my own little tiny paint booth. And it doesn't do it nearly as good as having an actual real paint booth. Wow, that light's jacking up. I'm gonna have to fix that before I can spray anything. Anyways, yeah, it doesn't really do as good as it would if it was a real paint booth, obviously, but it's just kind of making the best of a situation that we're in. So the other thing that I need to worry about too is I've got my lift under here, and this is going to be a super handy thing to have when it comes time to spray, because I can raise and lower the whole bed and get to where I'm at the optimal spots for everything. But I don't want any of the dirt and stuff that might still be by chance on it, and I definitely don't want a bunch of green overspray all over my red Snap-on lift. So I got to tape that off real quick, and then we'll be ready to go to step number 9. Okay, so now we've got this all masked off underneath here, and we are ready for the next step, and it's one more step of cleaning. Imagine that. So we're going to start off with a paper towel. It's an industrial shop towel style that doesn't leave all the little fuzzies and stuff behind like a normal household paper towel would. And we're going to use a wax and grease remover. And it's going to basically just be kind of some Mr. Miyagi shit where you do a wipe on, wipe off type scenario. So we'd want to wipe it on, starting at one end, of course, and working our way through. But then after you wipe it on, come back and wipe it off. And then it'll sit there and it'll evaporate what little bit's left. And once everything's all dry, we'll be ready to actually spray some paint. If you're going to skip any of the cleaning steps and do just one, this is going to be probably the most important cleaning step. Because at this point, you could still have any kind of little grease off of your fingers from just sweating or something like that, or some other stuff that, you know, might be microscopic that you can't even see with your eyes anymore, and the wax and grease remover will remove it. So don't forget this step, and I will put a link down below to some wax and grease remover so you guys can kind of have an idea of what it is you need to get if you're not already aware. And finally, step number 10. We're finally here. All the steps of cleaning and everything are all going to come together now, and we're going to mix up some paint and get ready to shoot some on our bed. The system that I like using to spray with the most is this PPS system from 3M. It works really good. They have these disposable cups and these lids that have a built-in filter in them that are pretty sweet. So they come with a cup that's got a mixing label in it. If you want to use that cup here to actually mix in, you can. And then you have zero stuff to clean up afterwards other than a little bit of stuff that's in the bottom of the gun. So it works out pretty good. I'm a little bit old school, so I still like using a cup and being able to fill the gun as needed type scenario. So I'm going to go ahead and mix it in this, and I'm going to go ahead and use a filter to filter my paint. Even though it was just mixed yesterday, it's not going to be probably necessary, especially since there is a built-in filter on these, but once again, still a little bit old school here on this stuff, so that's the method I use. I'm shooting some Chroma Base paint because that was about as cheap as I could come up with that would actually be the color that we needed for our truck, unfortunately. Usually I like some Nason. You can get that at O'Reilly's, a few other places too. It's a pretty good paint for the money. I've had really no problems with it at all. So the way this Chroma Base mixes, it's a 1-to-1. So your first step is to take and stir this up really well. Make sure that you get all these pigments and everything blended together really good. This particular paint has a shit ton of pearl in it. So you want to make sure that that's all consistent through the whole can. So as you're pouring and mixing, you don't have some of it that turns out to be a little bit different color than others and makes it all splotchy looking when it's on the truck. So on my mixing cup here, it's actually got a ton of different numbers on it, and you can use pretty much any selection of them you want. I just pick one of them and say on this one here, I'm going to go to, not spill it, I'm going to just go up to 4, and then I'm going to go up to 8, and that'll split the difference there and make it 50-50, and we'll be ready to spray. And there's our first little bit of paint out of the can. And then we need to go to the base maker. Should have had this opened already beforehand, but I didn't. So there's our 8. So 4 of one, 4 of the other, totaling 8. 1-to-1 mix. Everything's strained out of there real nice, no chunks at all or anything, so we know we had the paint good and mixed up in the can. Need to go ahead and, I'll just grab a new stick here. Stir this stuff up really, really good. Still looks black, huh? All right. Should have had a trash can in here with me, but I did not. So, just lay that over there. good and stirred up. Good chunk of that in there. I'm going to put the strainer back over the top of that to keep anything from falling in there. This lid goes on. Then the ring locks it. And then the gun slips on. Quick turn and we're good to go. Well guys, I appreciate you staying this long in the video. Hopefully I gave you guys a little bit of enlightenment on what it takes to be able to prep some of this stuff and get it ready for paint. And if you guys want to learn a little bit more, I'm going to throw up a few videos here at the end that you'll be able to check out and maybe go a little bit more in depth in some of this stuff. Didn't want to go all the way in depth in this video because then it would have been like 2 hours long and nobody would have watched the whole thing. So, with that said, if you guys think I earned it, I hope you hit the subscribe button down there below and hit the little bell next to it so that you get notifications of when my next videos come out. And with that, we're pretty well done with this video. So I guess it's time to actually put some color on this thing.